Hi there, it's Sarah from RTE Robotics, and today I'll be showing you how to code a chasing game in Scratch. So this primarily focuses on the movement of the sprites. So we can start off with making a user sprite, and if we go to this cat icon, we can choose a different sprite. And Scratch has a lot of sprites. So I'm just going to choose a lion, and let's call him enemy. So this is going to be a tag like game. So you just have to keep on staying away from the lion. And we could have some sort of scoring system. So what if we had like balls that you had to collect? So it's just this size parameter just controls how big it is, as you saw with me making each sprite 50% smaller. So first what we need to do is we need to code the movement for our user, so the cat. So I need the first input to run the code, and a bunch of if-then statements for if-then statements. For the movement of our sprite, we'll just use the standard WASD. So the library that controls the inputs is called sensing. So we go to sensing, which is on this leftmost bar, and we have key is base clicked. We use this one because this takes the inputs from our keyboard. This touching mouse pointer means that the sprite is coming into contact with whatever a different sprite or the mouse. So right here, the sprite is touching the mouse pointer. So we're just going to get four of these and putting them in each of these hexagonal shapes and changing if the space to whatever we want to send it as. So I'm using WASD. You can use arrow keys, but these just will control how the character will move, like up, down, left, right. So now for D, and this is where the motion from the last video comes in handy. So we can either use move, but the problem with this is that it just really complicates things, as you're going to then have to add this set rotation style, and then you're going to have to set like pointing in direction. So what we're going to use is the change x by and change y by. And so if you right click on a block, you can duplicate it, add a comment, or just delete it. So that's what I'm doing right now. So let's set this to -10, set this to -10, and there we go. We have a moving sprite. However, it's a bit boring. So if we go into this costume tabs, you can see we have these two costumes. And this can be used to make a running animation. So we can go to say forever. And it looks more like the cat is running. Now what we want to do is just be able to flip the cat in the direction that it is moving. So let's set rotation style to left, right, and we can set the turn in the x direction. So duplicate that, say 180. It's also 180. So now, if we go, small problem, it just keeps on changing direction. So this would not work as shown. So what we can do is point toward. So what we can do is a point in direction, say point in this direction, whenever the key A is pressed. So now it's just pointing in this direction. Just change D to this here, and now it should work. So now we've made a fully working sprite that can move around. Now we want to make a fully autonomous sprite that chases this cat around. So again, we should do when green flag is clicked, and we can't really have the line spawning on top of the cat. So we just set that at the start of every game, the line will always start at this point. And then what we can do is we want to point it towards the user, so the sprite here. This is so it's always following it. So if let's say it goes down, it's always going to be following it. But we want to stay, but this will cause it to just automatically lock on, and it just freezes. So what we do is do what we did for the last one, and we put it in a forever loop. Just make sure that the go-to coordinates is not in the forever loop, otherwise it'll stay that way. And as you can see, the line is chasing us. And let's just make the line a little bit slower. And this looks kind of unrealistic, as you would never see a line vertical. So we can go back to the motion and set the rotation style to left, right. Now it keeps on it's going to follow us, but we're facing the same problem in that it doesn't look like it's walking. So go to costumes. This is like the actual lion. So let's just go for next costume. And now it looks like it's walking. So next let's encode this ball. And so the goal of this game is just to collect as many balls as possible. So for that we need some way to count the points. There you go. So I've already made my variable points, but to make a variable, just click make variable, and make sure it's on all for all sprites, because if you can change the number of balls that you have on your game. So I'm just gonna give me points. Okay, let's do point then. And this is our scoreboard. So we know that we want this just to spawn randomly around. So we're going to click go to random position and put it in a forever loop with if then statement. So it's always going to check. So again, we're going to need the input that if our cat is touching it, then we gain a point and teleport somewhere else. So as stated in the last video, we go to random position and we can use variables to change it by 1. So every time that it moves, that we come into contact with it. Oh, it's not working. Well, it's not working because we haven't added the condition. So we'll go to sensing for the input or the condition. And here we're using touching. If it's touching the user, then it should work. Now we've made a point scoring system. But we need the enemy to actually do something when it catches us. So what it can do, wait, have you spotted that? In the code there's something wrong with it. Here, when we look at the change my variable, it's not supposed to be my variable. Remember, our variable is points, or whatever you named it to be. So we have to select points, and now, as you can see, every time we come to contact with one of the balls, we gain a point. So now we need the enemy to actually do something when it catches us. So if we go, we're basically doing the same thing as the ball. So what we can do is we can click and drag it and put it on top of the enemy. So now we have 2 pieces of code that run at the same time. So we don't need this go to random position. So we can just delete that. But we do need this part if touching user. Here, what we wanted to do is we want the game to stop completely. So you have stop all. And then what we want to do is have a game over screen. So we can either use backdrops or we can use a sprite. Since we haven't used a backdrop before, let's use a backdrop. So you click next backdrop and then stop all, because the way stop all works is that you can't add anything after stop all. Oh, let's go to paint. If we go to the picture in paint, we get to create our own backdrops. So I apologize for my very much Picasso-like drawing. So game. Okay. So now that that's the backdrop, let's see how this game runs. There's a glitch here. It's not resetting after each one, because every time we start the game, we want it to start from 0. So what we do is we go to variables, and we set the variable to 0 every time. So now I'm not very good at games. Now, each time we collect one of the balls, we get a point. But after we come into contact with the line, it's game over. So that's it for the game. I hope you enjoyed it. Smash like and subscribe, and bye bye.